Welcome to Magnet Gaming, and today's console review is going to be on a classic game that I first played as a 7-year-old when I got a Super Nintendo as a kid. And no, it's not going to be Mario Paint. It is Super Mario World. It's one of those games that there's very little else that I can add to the conversation about this game that somebody else hasn't already said. It's been ported to numerous platforms. You can even find websites where you can play it online. There's an ongoing fan community that still creates the levels for it. It's one of the most popular speedrunning titles. And it's a game that has kind of a timeless appeal. It's one of the few games that I can pick up now, even after playing it as a kid. What was that, about 26 years ago? I can still pick it up today and enjoy the game. There's very few games where I don't have at least a little bit of difficulty getting back into because of graphical limitations of the time, interfering, gameplay advancing to a point where it's too simplistic on some older games, etc. So yeah, we're reviewing the Super Nintendo version of Super Mario World today. More of just a brief overview, and then I'll give it a score as far as the rest of the games we have on the list. Where does it stack up with every other game in my collection? So it was released in Japan on November 21st of 1990, along with F-Zero as the two launch titles for the Super Nintendo. It was released in North America in 1991. And it is part of, I believe, 5 launch titles. Which I'm trying to think. I know F-Zero was a part of that. I think Sim City might have been a part of that. Let's look that up really quick. Super Nintendo launch titles. Might not be a bad little thing to look up. F-Zero, Pilot Wings, Gradius 3, Sim City, and Super Mario World. At some point I'll get to Sim City, both the Super Nintendo and the PC versions. And I think I really like F-Zero. I'll probably add that to my collection at some point again. So Super Mario World, as you see on the screen, it's a 2D side-scrolling action game. It really takes advantage of the Super Nintendo for the time. Instead of being like many action platformers at a time where you get maybe a dozen or maybe even 24 levels, this thing has over 90 different levels and multiple paths with a game map that you keep unlocking more and more as you progress in the game. It's also a variety of difficulty levels as far as the levels go, including Star Road, where if you complete that you get access to some of the most difficult levels in the game to add a bunch of unique challenges. You don't get all the different extra accessories that you do in Super Mario 3. There's no raccoon suit, no frog suit. You have the mushroom, the flower, and then you have the feather to be able to fly. Now with the flying, if you nail the controls just right, you can actually fly over a lot of the levels. At the same time, you're likely to miss a lot of stuff. Another thing about the game is the levels that are on the map that have the yellow dot do not have a secondary exit point, and the ones that have the red dot do have a secondary exit point. So if you're trying to do a 100% playthrough of this game, you need to make sure you have at least a branching path at every one of the red dots. So with all the secret areas to find and multiple paths, it does create a situation where if you know what you're doing, you can speed through this game quite quickly. Get through the first level, skip getting the yellow switch. First level of the second world, you can take a branching path that eventually takes you to Star Road. Go through Star Road, end up at Bowser's Castle, get through it, end the game. But then you're missing out on the diverse levels throughout the game, including one of my favorite is the forest, which has a lot of tricky points where you need to follow a certain path to get to the correct exit. So yeah, anyways, you progress through the world. Your goal is to save Princess Toadstool as well as the dinosaur land from Bowser and the Koopalings. A very basic story, but nobody's really playing this game for the story, it's for the gameplay. The gameplay is super responsive. This game is basically takes Super Mario 3, updates the graphics with graphics that aren't all that complex, but the graphical style is done in such a way where it has timeless appeal. Kind of an antithesis to early polygonal PlayStation 1 and Sega Saturn and N64 games that were loaded with fog. So it's a game with timeless appeal, responsive controls, lots of hidden secrets, lots of levels to explore, and it's designed in such a way where the levels are very rhythmic. I can't speak today. So you can actually get in certain rhythm and fly through a lot of these levels, making it a really enjoyable game not only to speedrun yourself, but also to watch people do speedruns of. The music's well done and fitting for each level. The sound effects, albeit basic by today's standards, are fitting for the theme. It's really a game that doesn't really do anything wrong. However, the absence of doing anything wrong does not in and of itself make something perfect. It is a game that is fairly basic. Over time, the more hardcore gamer, who knows, maybe they'll try to do better on the speedrun times, but as far as playing the game as intended, once you've beat it a couple times and you've nailed the levels, you have the levels memorized and the timing down, which I haven't played this game in a while, and instead of doing the screen capture using the Super Nintendo itself, I just did an emulated copy here to save time. Yeah, I lost a bit of my skill in this game. The boss battles at the end of each level do vary enough to each one provides a different challenge. They do the difficulty curve of the levels and everything is appropriate for a game like this. It's a game that the 7-year-old me and the 30-year-old me should both find should find it playable, maybe a little bit frustrating and difficult, but something that's playable and with some time and effort, a game that's beatable. So, Super Mario World, where do I rate this one? That's the question. Where do I rate it, and what do I rate it, and where do I rank it? And really, between Super Mario 3 for the NES and Super Mario World for the Super NES, a lot of the arguments about which one is better, once you set aside the graphical and sound improvements that are a result of just the hardware each one was written for, it's really a matter of personal preference which one is better. I kind of enjoy even if the items weren't all that useful all the time, such as the frog suit or the raccoon suit in the first one, the Mario 3, I did kind of enjoy that variety. I also enjoyed a lot of the challenges and everything of the Mario 3 as well in the different levels. I thought there was a greater variety of challenges within the levels on the main path. However, this incorporates Star Road and some other levels which the Super Mario 3 did not have. It had the warp whistles where you could skip through the game, much like how you can use Star Road to skip through this game as well. I do miss the ships from Mario 3. As far as saying one game is better than the other, I really can't say one. Once you set aside graphics and sound, like I said, it really is a matter of personal preference. So as far as each one goes, I'm giving this one a 9 out of 10. It's a timeless classic. Anybody considers himself a gamer should have at least played through this game once. And anybody that's wanting to design a game should really study this game. It's one of those games where if I was doing a class on game design fundamentals and theory, I would definitely take this one into consideration as one of the case studies to include. And there I'm showing you one of the secret exits there. And there's actually multiple ways I could have gotten to that. Had I gotten a green switch first, I could have ran up a wall to get there. However, because I didn't get the green switch yet, I was able to use the feather, which gave me the cape, and then use the cape to fly up there and get the key. There I showed some of the map. So yeah, this game, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. Which is a rather exclusive category. Even though I have hand-selected quite a few games I do consider to be a part of that category. That is a category of games that everybody should play at least once. And where do I put it on the list? Even though, like, as a kid, I really did become more of a Sega person. As I've gotten older, I do believe that the Super Nintendo had a better variety of games that are more to my adult self's liking. Especially the RPGs, and as well as some of the simulation type games and the combo games, like the combo strategy simulation RPG type games like Uncharted Waters. So Super Mario World, I'm putting 10th on the list. That is right below Super Mario Bros. 3 and right above Sonic 2 for the Genesis. But really, those three games, it's just a matter of personal preference. All three of those are timeless classics as far as 2D action platformers go, and are games that everybody should have in their collection if they consider themselves a serious gamer. And really, if there's a game that can draw me away from RPGs, open world sandbox games, 3D games, 3D and 2D adventure games, if something can draw me away from more, hate to say serious, but kind of not serious, not as better, but more serious titles like that, I guess. If something can draw me away from those types of games to play a more cartoonish side-scrolling game, then in my book they're definitely deserving of a high score. So that puts Super Mario World 10th on our list. It's in the top 10. And hopefully the random number generator for the PC games gives us some games to unseat that and fewer of the big rigs and Who Framed Roger Rabbits. I guess you'll see in a little bit when I post the PC review. Hope you enjoyed the review. And this game is quite common. If you're getting a copy for the Super Nintendo, you shouldn't pay more than $10. Although a lot of people want to charge more than that. And it's available on about any Nintendo digital console that you can think of. And one more thing to add, it did have a Game Boy Advance release, which is Super Mario World, Super Mario Advance 2. Which I can't speak of the quality of that one, but if it's the same game on the Game Boy Advance, then I'm sure it's a highly recommended game, in my opinion, if I were to have played it. Hope you enjoyed the review. I'm currently doing Let's Plays, active Let's Play of The Longest Journey, and I have other ones that I'm in the process of working on here and there, including Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, Dragon Age Origins, Morrowind, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, as well as playthroughs of Void Bastards and Bloodstained coming up. If you have a specific game you'd like me to review, as long as I own a copy of the game, it's in my collection, just put it in the comments and I will bump it up the list. Please like, subscribe, and have a great day.